Crazy, right? Let me make sure everything's all working here. These live streams can be glitchy, so let me make sure before I get rolling. Audio's all working. All that fun stuff. Crazy, right? Seems to be. Seems to be. So how we all doing? On the eve, almost February, and we get some big news for the Rams. It's been a covering LA football. I tweeted earlier, it's never boring covering a Rams offseason, but even the Chargers this year, with their coaching changes and hiring Brandon Staley, just, whatever it was 10 days ago and all that stuff. So we've been busy, man, around the clock. It's been fun. So appreciate you all jumping in here. We'll get into it in just a second. I'll let some more people join. It won't be long. I got a podcast planned. I think Frosty and I will be jumping on Monday, so we'll obviously dive deep into this. And I don't know if we'll do it Monday or later in the week, but getting a huge roundtable of Rams, podcasters, bloggers jumping on with me. I don't know if I doubt they're going to watch this, but I'll name drop a few. We got Sosa Cremenges, my man from Locked On Rams. We got Brad Motter, formerly Locked On Rams, doing other stuff. He might jump on. The guys over at the Rams Brothers podcast. Jake Ellenbogen from Downtown Rams. So we'll do a big roundtable and discuss in depth this trade and how it felt. But I just wanted to jump on and you can tweet stuff, all that fun stuff. But I wanted to jump on here and just give my thoughts and what I think, because I think overall this is a good move for Rams. You upgrade the quarterback position. Anytime you can upgrade a position, you have to be thinking in a positive light. I'll get more into what they gave up because they gave up a lot. But I just want to get that first off the bat. Matt Stafford is an upgraded quarterback. And so that has to be a positive for the future, right? I mean, you have to think that. If you can upgrade that position, the most important position in all of sports, it's a benefit. So, I haven't been shy on the podcast and on Twitter. I feel like I became almost somewhat of a heel on Rams Twitter. I'm always a glass half full guy, but I was just realistically, I did not think a deal could potentially get done for Jared Goff. I just thought his contract and his declining play would really make it difficult for the Rams to move him. I said, I don't know if other people said this, but I did say I think it could potentially take a Brock Osweiler-like deal to move him. For those not familiar, a few years ago, after Houston signed Osweiler to a big deal, and he had a horrible season, and they needed to just move on and start fresh. They ended up trading him to Cleveland. They traded Brock Osweiler and a second-round pick for a seventh-round conditional pick, just essentially to shed his contract, just to get him off the books. So I thought, with Goff's declining play, with how big his contract was, I thought that it might take that. Now, obviously, it didn't fully take that because they got an upgrade at QB. But when you give up 2 first-round picks and a third and Jared Goff for Matt Stafford, similarly, that extra first-round pick was payment saying, hey, here's an extra first, so that's going to buy you Jared Goff, essentially, or buy you from the Rams. But, give Les Snead credit. He plays by his own rules, man, right? Like, he really just doesn't care about what the way to run a front office is, or what the way to value draft picks, value first-round picks. He constructs his teams in a very different way. It's fun. I think, thank you, Steven, for the shout out. Steven actually was talking earlier in our group chat. He writes for LAFB, and he was saying, I wish more teams were run kind of like the Rams and their aggressiveness, because it is, there's so many teams that just sit back and they make these mistakes, whether it be contracts or draft picks, and they kind of just live with those mistakes because they're like, oh, I don't want to threaten our future. Where Snead's like, you know what, we'll just mortgage the future and move on. And that's what he did. So, who knows if that is the right decision. but they upgraded the position. So I find it funny that I think it's been 3 years now, trying to think back to when Cooks was 3 off seasons ago. It seems like every offseason the Rams make these big deals. And, you get national media and some fans, Rams are in win now mode. They're in win now mode. And again, this trade comes out, Rams are in win now mode. They've been doing it now for a long time. So, if you're in win now mode all the time, that's not a bad thing. So, it's a crazy deal. And I think it does, they were already Super Bowl contenders. They went to the second round of the playoffs this year. But I do think this elevates them as the current roster is constructed. Now, it's still going to be a tough offseason. I haven't gotten deep into the contract and the cap. Obviously, before this trade, they're about negative 30 million or so. And so they had to obviously get some players off the books to get back to even. And then, can they re-sign Johnson? Can they re-sign Leonard Floyd? I was very skeptical. Frosty was very skeptical that we didn't think that would be able to happen. So I need to look. I know they save, I think, in moving Goff 12 million. So that'll get them closer back to zero. If I, just simple math doing it, that puts them now from 30 to about 18 million under the cap or over the cap, I guess, depending how you want to say it. So they still need to shed some money to get back to zero. So I'm still not sure if they can re-sign some of those big free agents they have. I think John Johnson was kind of, the writing was on the wall, and they drafted 2 safeties in this year's draft. But we can get more into that later in the line. Right now, we just want to talk about the quarterback. So let's just talk briefly about what Matt Stafford brings. Because if you look statistically, they're very even, at least this last season. But obviously, statistics don't tell the whole story. Last season, Matt Stafford finished with just over 4,000 yards. Jared Goff was just under 4,000. Matt Stafford had 26 touchdowns. Jared Goff had 20 touchdowns. Stafford, 10 picks. Jared Goff, 13 picks. So statistically, very even. Obviously, stats don't tell the whole story. If you watch football, if you watch teams besides the Rams, Matt Stafford's a better quarterback. He has better arm talent. He can put, the ball in places that not many quarterbacks can do. I know that the league, the media, fan bases are enamored by Pat Mahomes, as they should be. But Matthew Stafford's been doing those things for a long time too. The no-look passes, fitting the ball in the tight windows. So he's a very, very exciting quarterback. He pushes the ball down the field. I know a lot of people, especially Rams fans, have been just angered, pounding the table for the Rams and Goff to push the ball down the field like they did in 2018, and they just haven't done it. And so we always, every week, it's like we jump on the podcast, I talk to fans on Twitter, and it's like, is it Jared Goff? Is it McVay not calling plays? Is it May not trust him? I remember we had Jordan Rodrigue, the great Jordan Rodrigue, on the show mid-season, and she pointed out, the plays are there. If you watch the All-22, there's times when they have receivers downfield open and Goff goes to the check down. So I don't think necessarily in that aspect it was McVay not trusting him. It was more maybe Goff not trusting himself or just not seeing things like he did in 2018. And, we can go down rabbit holes and discuss why that happened, whether it was lack of confidence from the front office, whether it was just his decline. He said, she said, we could get into that, but there's no point because now he's no longer with the Rams. So, but point being, Matt Stafford certainly can push the ball down the field and can bring an excitement back to this offense that I think we lacked this year when there was pieces in place with this receiving core, with now this running back room, with an offensive line that finished, everyone, you can discuss Pro Football Focus's stats and how they're subjective. I say it's certainly not the end all, but it is a good metric to go off of. And the Rams offensive line finished as the 3rd best offensive line. Now I know there's a lot of discussion. Well, they still, didn't play well against, bigger body defensive linemen, yada, yada, yada. But that's still a huge improvement for where they finished in 2019. And so Matt Stafford now gets behind a good offensive line. So one concern, though, that I've seen, and I think it was LA Rams Fan Zone on Twitter, if you're watching, shout out to you, said, Stafford had some big weapons, had Megatron, he's had Galladay, he's got, Marvin Jones, he's had some good receivers, which obviously is why he's put up big numbers, but they don't win. They don't win in Detroit. And so you're going to bring in a QB that, statistically is a good QB, arm talent-wise is a good QB, but he's not a winner. And so what makes you think he can win in LA? He didn't ask all that, but that was part of, the questioning. And I get that. But I think Detroit, first of all, the culture that was there when the last coaching staff was there was just not a winning culture with Matt Patricia. So I'm not even going to put anything on Matt Stafford for those few years. Obviously, I think Jim Caldwell was let go prematurely. They played some good football for him, but that's a different discussion. But I think it more goes into Matt Stafford was relied upon as the sole source to win games. I mean, if you know anything about the Lions, you know that they've had like 100-yard rusher, like one game of 100-yard rusher in like multiple years. Like they just don't run the football. That'll change now with Anthony Lynn there as offensive coordinator. Any Chargers fans watching know that. But they just don't run the football. So it's very hard when you don't have complementary football on offense. And that's one thing I've talked about a lot with McVay and with the Rams and with Jared Goff. You have to have complementary offense. Like Goff can be a good quarterback in this league, but he has to have a good running back. When the Rams this year ran the ball 30 plus times, they won football games. When they didn't force Goff to pass it 50 times, they were a decent offense. I wouldn't call them a good offense this year, but they finished top 15. So yeah, they were a decent, good offense. Not great, decent, good. But they had to run the football. Matthew Stafford never had that, still put up good numbers, still carried the teams to be competitive. They just didn't win games necessarily because, if you're throwing the ball and you know what the offense is going to give it you, defenses are smart. D coordinators are smart. They're going to adapt. So now if he comes into this Sean McVay system, McVay, I still think needs to play complementary football, but Stafford gives you that option to lean on him a little bit more, where you couldn't lean on Goff, at least in these last two seasons. They could a little bit in 2018. We saw games, specifically the Chiefs game, specifically the Vikings game, when, he lit it up for 500 plus yards and multiple touchdowns and looked really good. Again, the decline, a lot of factors went into it, but these last 2 years, the Rams offense could not lean on Jared Goff. They can do that, I think, with Matt Stafford to an extent. I think if they still stick to complementary football, running the ball with Cam Akers, who became the true feature back the last few weeks down the stretch, I think this can be a very, very good offense, very potent offense. So on that surface level, this is a good move for the Rams. They improve the quarterback position. The offense can certainly improve, and I think it'll be fun to see where they go from here. I've seen some things come out that, quarterbacks now can play till their 40s. This is not a short window for the Rams because Stafford is 32. He turns 33 February 7th, so he's 33. Let me say this, and I don't want to play optimist or pessimist, excuse me. But I don't want to plan on a quarterback being great until they're 40. Tom Brady's done it. Aaron Rodgers is 38 and is going to win MVP this year. Other than those two, every quarterback declines. Not saying they don't play well, but Phillip Rivers, who now is retired, had a good season these last couple years, but he declined. Ben Roethlisberger declined. Eli Manning, huge decline, ended up retiring. Peyton Manning, big decline. So quarterbacks can still play well, but banking on them, Matt Stafford being a top 10 quarterback when he's 38 years old, not realistic. I don't want to bank my franchise on that. So he has his contract, I believe, for 3 more seasons. And then, if he plays well, knowing Les Snead, they'll extend him probably this offseason. They'll probably sign him to a long-term or a longer-term deal this offseason where they can move some of his money, maybe backload it so that they do free up some cap space so that they could maybe re-sign some of these guys I was talking about earlier. Would not be shocked at all if Snead does that. But I just want to say that I wouldn't plan on Stafford being an elite quarterback for another 6 to 8 plus years. It can happen. We're going to root for that to happen. But I think at 33, you should plan on a 3-year window of him playing elite football. Once he hits 36, we're probably going to see a little decline. But, I'm not trying to put any, bad light or pessimism in that at all. I just think that's more realistic expectations. But for now, on the surface, I think it's overall a good day for the Rams. Again, you give up a lot, 2 first-round picks and a third. We're approaching a decade now of the Rams not having a first-round pick. Their last pick was Jared Goff in 2016. They now won't have one until 2024. Who knows if Snead keeps those? So we're 8 years of no first-round picks. And, they've made the playoffs 3 of the last 4 years and went to a Super Bowl. So, arguably, that plan has been working. Arguably, this team has been competitive and in a position to play for world championships every season. So, he's kinda debunking, if you will, the theme that first-round picks are extremely important and valuable, because if you have superstar players like they do in Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, and now I don't know if you consider Matt Stafford a superstar, but certainly an upgrade. You have a good receiving core. You have good running backs. And then if you can just develop mid-round picks like they've done, John Johnson is going to get paid this offseason. Cooper Kupp, who got paid, great receiver. I know Robert Woods they got, via free agency, but, he was a later pick, I believe a second rounder in his year. They got mid-round offensive line talent. So if they can develop, then you can go from that trend of not needing a first-round pick to be competitive. Because some teams, they just can't develop mid-round guys. So you got to give credit to McVay and his staff, who, that's another story. A lot of that staff is now gone. But they've been able to turn mid-round hidden gems, if you will, into jewels, into diamonds. So, yeah, anyway, I just wanted to get on quickly and chat a little bit, give my 2 cents. Hats off to Snead and the front office there. I really did not. I was skeptical that a deal could get done. They gave a lot away to make it happen, but they made it happen. So, touche them. We'll see how Jared Goff does in Detroit, how long he will be there, whether they draft someone with the 7th pick and let him develop behind Goff or what that will look like over there. But for the Rams, you have Matt Stafford now as your QB. Let's see what he does in this McVay system. It should be a lot of fun to watch, and, we're here for it. Make sure to stay in with the LAFB network, the LA Football Network, all off season. Draft season's coming up. We just had 2 guys down at the Senior Bowl who did great work down there. I'll be pumping out a couple articles here tonight. Just wanted to get this out first, but yeah, shout out. Got to have my Rams beer anytime we come on. Whose House, brought to you by Golden Road. So crazy though. Crazy trade, crazy day in LA. Never boring covering this team, that is for sure. So, yeah, I don't really know what else to say. We'll cover more on that roundtable like I was talking about, cover more on the podcast with Frost, get his thoughts on it. If you listened to our show last week, he said the only trade that could happen is Stafford, and, he was right about that. So I agreed. I didn't think there was any chance Watson was coming here. We see what they gave it for Stafford. That meaning it would have cost them like 4 first rounders for Watson, and that's a whole weird scenario with if they even do trade him because they don't want to, but he obviously wants out. He has no trade clause, so he can kind of pick and choose where he does go. But yeah, so that didn't happen, and Stafford's here now. So Matt Stafford, welcome to LA, welcome to the Rams, welcome to the Ramley. Thank you all for jumping on with me, guys, asking some questions. I didn't really get to answer too many of them. I apologize for that, but I just wanted to jump on quick and give some 2 cents. So make sure to stay tuned, stick with us. Like I said, we'll be doing some great shows here in the next few days, and plenty of great stuff all off season. We'll get some Senior Bowl stuff up for your Rams, some players to watch for. We already have a few up on LAFBnetwork.com, but I'll get a few more up tonight, so make sure to stay tuned for that. So, yeah, stay healthy, stay safe, guys. Hit me up on Twitter. Love talking all night long or as long as I can, and until the wife makes me shut it down. And we'll talk more in the next coming days. Take care.